All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Brady. I am the Executive Director of the J.P. Morgan Center for Commodities at the University of Colorado Denver's Business School. And I am happy to thank you for joining us today for this informational session on our upcoming executive education class on energy analytics and big data for managers. So we are co-sponsoring this class with the Global Energy Management Program, who we are starting to work more and more together with. And I would just like to encourage anybody to have questions during this session to just type them into the Q&A, and I will be asking Tim, who's going to be our instructor. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tim Coburn. He is a professor of energy and operations management at the University of Tulsa, and he'll provide a brief overview of the class. So thanks, Tim, for joining us today.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. Introduction. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Tim Coburn. As Tom said, I have an affiliation with the University of Tulsa. I've been a professor there for quite a while, and I actually was the director of the School of Energy Economics, Policy, and Commerce for a number of years there, and taught a variety of courses in big data and energy, and the interface of big data and energy over the time that I was there otherwise. I've been in the energy industry about 35 years, in and out in a variety of ways, in a variety of situations, largely working in the area of data and analytics at that interface. So I've seen the applications, and I've done a lot of that in a consulting environment as well as teaching over these years. So what I want to do a little bit today is talk about the class that's upcoming, and then we'll let Tom ask some questions, and it'll generate some more conversation here. So this class really is intended for managerial staff, or people who are currently managers, or those who are moving up the ladder into management or supervisory situations within oil and gas companies and power companies and renewable companies, kind of pretty much all across the energy space. The idea here is to really improve one's consciousness or maturity or intelligence, you might say, about data and big data and analytics, and how they impact organizations, particularly in the energy space. So we're gonna spend a lot of time largely focusing on terminology and organizational ideas and how they impact the organization itself, to try to get people more aware of the kinds of terms and the language and the words and the verbiage that are used in this space throughout the industry. Now, I know a lot of you who might be listening to this will say, well, I already kind of know all of that, and that is true to one extent, but a lot of folks will talk about things like data at rest, or data in motion, or Hadoop, all these kind of terms and things like this that we kind of say but really don't know what we're talking about very much. You know, we hear a lot about models and algorithms and that kind of stuff. So my intent here is really to prepare people who are going into organizations who maybe haven't been on the front lines of working with data or data organizations, and look at how data impacts the organization, looking at the value of data. We can get data, where data comes from, why we have so much data, the various kinds of data in this big data space. In addition, I'll talk a little bit about analytics, certainly how analytics and data kind of go together in these ideas, particularly in our contemporary thinking and talking about this stuff. Analytics and data certainly are impacting the oil and gas industry and the power industry and the renewable sector as well on a variety of fronts, kind of across all aspects of the organizations. And so that's what the idea here would be for the class, is to try to improve our awareness of all of what's going on and why we need to be aware of it, and how we're going to respond in various ways when these ideas come up. You know, you might be an organization and say, well, you know, your employee comes and says, well, I need X, Y, Z, and I need to do this, and this is why we're going to do it. And you may have no clue really, I mean, you might think you do, and you shake your head yes, but you really want to have a little deeper understanding about what are my employees asking me for, and how am I going to use that in my corporate planning and in my strategic operations as I move forward here. So I've taught this class in a variety of settings, in the business environment, in the energy environment, the technical environment. I taught it for oil and gas folks and for power folks as well. And the terms and the terminology are pretty consistent across all sectors of the industry. We just want to kind of learn a little bit more about how they actually apply in various contexts. So what I'm going to do is organize some sessions every week in which I'm going to record some lectures. You're going to hear me, lecture maybe is not the right word for this particular kind of environment, but I'm going to record some sessions. I'm going to put some notes out there. There'll be a couple of those during the week that are going to be, you can log on and listen to those whenever you want to. And then in the later part of the week, on Thursdays and Fridays, perhaps, we're going to have some live sort of lunch and learn sessions, in which we talk about what you've heard me say already, but talk about it on a one-on-one setting. And perhaps have some outside speakers as well, as we can bring people into the environment. I'm going to also ask all the participants to bring some ideas that they want to know something more about, or maybe a case or situation which they've been involved in their own settings and situations that they want to know a little more about, and have the various participants kind of get their hands around those and talk about them as I talk about them as well. And I'll also provide some additional sort of reading materials, maybe a weekly reading list on various topics that we can take home with us and discuss more and dig more deeply if that would be of interest to folks. So in a 4-week session here, we'll talk about things like basic energy data fundamentals, the value of data, and particularly to an organization, something like data monetization, those kinds of ideas. What's the really big deal about big data? Why we talk about that? What's the important things? We'll talk a little bit about what's good data, what's bad data. We'll talk something about data storage ideas and data management ideas, which are certainly pertinent to all kinds of energy organizations today. I'll talk a little bit about analytics. I'm not going to dig deeply into it. We're not going to do any heavy computing in this class. We'll use Excel, perhaps a little bit, but beyond Excel, we're not going to be doing any kind of heavy duty computational thing. But hopefully you'll be able to walk away from here with some ideas about what kinds of analytics are involved and what kind of methodologies are there. We'll talk a little bit about models and algorithms. I already mentioned those, and perhaps talk about the idea of data mining and those kinds of things. And what I hope will come across here is what it's like to be a data-driven organization, and what it takes to get to be a data-driven organization from a managerial perspective. So that's kind of my brief overview of the class, Tom. And if you've got a question, be happy to field that.
Sure. I'll kick it off. Again, any questions, feel free to type them in. But Tim, kind of to kick it off, any types of prerequisites or backgrounds that you would recommend for students contemplating signing up for this?
Now, this is really a non-prerequisite course. It would certainly be helpful if folks have a basic understanding of business statistics or energy statistics or maybe engineering statistics you've had in the past, because I'll talk about, statistical terms. And so just a knowledge of those would be helpful. Means and averages and standard deviations, those kinds of things that people learn about in basic stat class. We'll talk a little bit about that. You can't talk about analytics or data without talking about those. So you'll hear me say those kinds of terms. But beyond that, and just some knowledge of how to use Excel, move files around, that's all we need to know here.
Okay. You kind of touched on who this course is recommended for, but in the past when you've taught this, Tim, what have you found with some of the participants? Have they been entry level, or have they been at the managerial level, managing a team? Or
I'd say it's kind of been across the board. I've had folks that were actually moving in as entry level supervisors. I've had more advanced folks, even international companies, come and talk about, listen to what's going there. it's kind of across the board. A lot of people like to come and just have a refresher and learn of what's going on right now, what's more contemporary than what they've had in the past, perhaps, because the technology moves so quickly and so fast. So the idea is really to kind of bring more of a contemporary look, current day kind of look into what's going on in this area.
Yeah, I think that's great. Right toward the end of my previous corporate job, I just, I spent my whole career in Excel and, but handling this big data sets, it just is such a great skill set to have and advance in a company. So, just kind of speaking on how relevant do you think this course is in the current, energy environment that we're in?
Well, you probably have to have been on Mars if you haven't heard a little bit about big data, particularly in energy. It's most organizations, regardless what sector they're in, are being driven by analytics and data and artificial intelligence and algorithms and models, all that stuff. That's where organizations are going. That's where business is going these days. And it is perhaps the most relevant idea, other than engineering or geology, however you work in energy. It's the most relevant idea from an organizational perspective that you can actually learn about and that skill, because if you can develop a good understanding of this and a good knowledge base and learn how to use it to your advantage, you can make a lot of money doing this kind of stuff. And that's where companies are going. In terms of operational efficiency and operational effectiveness, it's all about analytics and data.
Any from previous courses that you've offered, Tim, any key takeaways or any good feedback that the previous students have had that it'd be good to share with any of our prospective students?
I think what most people want to hear about is case studies. They kind of want to know how does this physically apply. It's all great and wonderful to get in the classroom or get on Zoom and talk concepts and words and things, but kind of getting down where the rubber meets the road is what people really want to see. Unfortunately, a lot of that stuff is proprietary, and you can't really get much, really serious details out of the organization. So I'm hoping that I can engage the participants here to bring some ideas from their own workspace. I don't want to know all the proprietary details, but we can certainly talk around those and collectively kind of talk at those ideas from a case perspective. And absent of that, I will bring what I have in terms of cases to the course. We will look at some actual energy data in Excel and kind of play around with that a little bit, get our hands wet with that. But it won't be, as I said, we're not heavy duty computing, but I'll try to weave all that in together so that people will leave with a more full and complete idea of how it actually is going to apply when they get home.
Again, anybody that's with us, if you have some questions, again, feel free to type them in. I think, Tim, you've kind of touched on, the key takeaways and of what people can expect out of this. And, last one, and you probably already touched on this, but, as far as, how is this course beneficial to energy professionals and organizations?
Well, I think, the number one skill base out there today is data analyst, data scientist, data technician, however you want to call those, data engineer. If you want to really beef up your career and make a name for yourself, I think you just have to know something about this. Irrespective of where you are in the career ladder, you can have been a 30-year CEO running a company, and all of a sudden all these ideas about big data are hitting you in the face from all around, and you don't want to sound, pardon the expression, ignorant or stupid around the water fountain, but you got to know a little bit about this. And if you can put all that together and increase your own skill, whether it be from a continuing ed perspective or a lifelong learning perspective, whatever, you can improve your skills and be able to talk about those things and synthesize all the ideas that are hitting us right now from this perspective, I think that's a great career enhancer. And it's particularly important for young folks coming into the industry right now, because that's where it's going to be for the foreseeable future.
Quick question came in. You know, is this? I think again you touched on this, Tim, but just to reiterate, is this class live or pre-recorded sessions?
So it can be both. So there will be some basic pre-recording sessions, which I actually put my PowerPoint slides out there, my material. I'll talk to them as if I were lecturing to a classroom. So those will be available at the beginning of every week. There'll be a couple of those kind of sessions. I'll try to make them so that they're 15, 20, 30 minutes in pieces, but there'll be enough of those to get the material out there. And then later in the week, we will have a live session. I've scheduled those tentatively for Fridays at noon, kind of lunch and learn sessions, which we actually talk live together, no more than an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, unless others want to join us there. But I may be able to, if I can make it happen, I'm going to also try to have some guest speakers come in. Those may be on Thursdays. And so this won't be required for everybody to attend all of these, but I think the participants would get more out of the live sessions. But I do expect them to have looked at the notes and the material in advance so that they don't feel like they're not caught up and I don't talk over their heads too much. So I'm expecting people to do both things for these 4 weeks.
Okay. All right. I still don't see any other new questions, but I just want to thank you, Tim, for your time, and as well as everybody that joined us today. And hope everybody remains safe. And again, inquire about this class if you have any questions over the coming days, and we'll get them answered ASAP.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Take care.